Шановні журналісти,
Esteemed journalists, esteemed guests, we welcome you at the UCMC. Now we'll be talking about the information on security in Ukraine and activities of OSCE in Ukraine. Our guest is Alexander Hug, Deputy Head of Special Monitoring Mission of OSCE.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your interest in the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. Let me update you on the situation in eastern Ukraine as observed by the SMM. All of us, the media and indeed the SMM in its reports, are all too prone to sometimes highlight the unusual while ignoring the mundane. While far from normalization, the reality is that in most areas in the East, we have seen a relatively calm situation. That said, the SMM over the past 2 weeks, since my last briefing here, has continued to note ceasefire violations in a number of locations. Most notably in areas northwest and west of Donetsk city, and, to a lesser extent, in the northern and northeastern outlying areas of Horlivka. In other areas, too, most notably in areas around Solote in the Luhansk region, and around such towns of Telmanovo and Volnovacha, between Mariupol and Donetsk, the SMM has recorded isolated acts of violence. The situation has, however, not been entirely static. In particular, on Sunday, the SMM has noted a marked increase in the number of ceasefire violations in areas around Donetsk airport, noting 250 instances. We also noted a spike yesterday. In the space of just 19 minutes, our monitors positioned at the Donetsk Central Railway Station recorded 107 explosions. The ceasefire is very shaky at its edges. Despite claims to the contrary, these numbers clearly show that not all weapons have been withdrawn from what is supposed to be a security zone. Many of the explosions we recorded were caused by proscribed heavy weapons that should have been withdrawn. In the face of this evidence, let me take this opportunity to ask the sides, even at this late stage, to honor their commitments they made in February to withdraw all heavy weapons from the contact line. The SMM stands ready to verify this withdrawal. We, the SMM, however, cannot do this job alone. As well as full compliance, the sides must enable the SMM. If they really want to enable us, if they really want to have the withdrawal of weapons verified, they must provide us with the weapons inventories. The simple fact is, if we don't know what weapons were in the security zone, we cannot verify their withdrawal. The sites must also ensure that heavy weapons are withdrawn to designated secure sites that meet specific criteria. Despite being told what these criteria are by the SMM already back on 16th of October, the sites have failed to meet them. Since the new regime came into force on 9th of November, the SMM has not verified the withdrawal of a single heavy weapon from the security zone. In addition, the sites must allow us unimpeded and unfettered access to the sites as guaranteed in the Minsk documents and indeed in the SMM mandate. In the past 2 weeks, in addition to 13 occasions when our freedom of movement was restricted by all sites, the SMM was denied entry to a DPR heavy weapons storage site. Now, dear friends, obstruction has in fact this week taken to another even higher level by the so-called LPR. They are now demanding the removal of 2 of our monitors from areas they control. Let me be very clear on this point. SMM monitors are deployed for operational reasons, and that decision is taken by the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, and not by anybody else, least of all by the so-called LPR. The 2 monitors in question will continue to carry out their duties where they are. They, and indeed the entire SMM, are entitled and obliged to establish and report facts. Permanent Council Decision 1117, under which the SMM operates, is clear on this. The SMM mandate applies to all Ukraine, including those areas currently not controlled by the government up to the border between Ukraine and the Russian Federation. The SMM will continue to monitor not only ceasefire violations, but all other aspects of its mandate, including in areas not controlled by the government, currently controlled by the so-called LPR. On a more mundane level, perhaps, the SMM meanwhile faces restrictions of another kind. As you know, Luhansk and Donetsk constitute large land masses. For the SMM to cover them in a balanced, fair and comprehensive manner, we need to establish forward patrol bases. So far, we have done so in 3 locations in government-controlled areas and in 1 place in so-called LPR-controlled areas. We have finalized all arrangements and are ready to deploy to other locations. But we are still waiting on the necessary security guarantees, in particular by the so-called DPR. Until we receive them, we are unable to open planned forward patrol bases in, for example, Horlivka or Debaltseve. I would ask those responsible for limiting the reach of our patrolling to understand they cannot have it both ways. If we have no access, we cannot monitor and report there. When angry people in Horlivka ask us why the SMM has sometimes been unable to report on shelling in the city, the SMM now will have an unambiguous answer for them. The situation regarding the verification of smaller caliber weapons has been somewhat better. As outlined in the package of measures and its addendum, these weapons are tanks, mortars up to and including 120 millimeters, and artillery up to 100 millimeters. This week, both sides announced the completion of the final stage of the withdrawal of these weapons. I wish to point out that this is welcome, but this is not the end of this process. Verification of that withdrawal is an ongoing process. It's open-ended, and it's a process to which the SMM is fully committed to. Meanwhile, the addendum-related verification process thus far has not been entirely smooth. Previously recorded weapons, or those declared in the inventories, are sometimes found to be missing. More concretely, we have also seen evidence of the use of such weapons. On 13th of November, for instance, the SMM inspected craters near Zaitsevo, just northeast of Horlivka. They were caused by 120 millimeter mortars. That particular attack also highlights another very disturbing future. These craters that we saw there were very close to a local school, and within 100 meters of that same school, there was a checkpoint controlled by armed members of the so-called DPR. I again call on the sides not to have positions or hardware, potential targets, near civilian infrastructure, particularly where children can expect it to be. Civilians, and in particular children, face another major risks. Explosive remnants of war and unexploded ordnance are littered all across the contact line. This week, a father and son were killed in Staro Marivka when their vehicle hit an anti-tank mine. Such a tragic incident reminds us of the urgent need to clear, or at the very least, identify and map out the locations of such indiscriminate weapons. The sites are indeed obliged under the memorandum to the Minsk Protocol to do so. The sides thankfully did last week take some concrete steps in fulfilling that obligation. Following SMM-facilitated talks, explosive ordnance disposal teams from both sides of the contact line removed or destroyed such weapons from a 3.5 kilometer stretch of road crossing the contact line just east of Shirokine in the southern part of the Donetsk region. Demining operations have taken place elsewhere. But given the location and the cooperation and coordination involved, this particular case is encouraging. I hope it will serve as an example and template for future action. Dear friends, finally, as usual, at the end of my briefings, let me update you on the mission numbers. As of this week, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission has 634 monitors. In addition, we have 78 other international staff and 281 Ukrainian colleagues working alongside us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the briefing. Якщо є питання, то зараз саме час, шановні журналісти. If there are any questions, this is the right time to ask them. Якщо немає питань або уточнень, то на цьому будемо завершити. If there are no questions or clarifications, we will finish here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Це був останній брифінг на сьогодні.
That was the last briefing for today, and the schedule for tomorrow will be on our website in a couple of hours.